Hey, what's going on, everyone? This is Mitch. Good Wednesday morning to you all. Hope you guys are waking up and feeling great out there this morning and having a wonderful start to your day. And I hope everyone's been having a great week out there so far. Hopefully, you're not like me. I am absolutely dragging this morning. Woke up late, slept in, let the alarm clock beat me. Routine got completely messed up. It happens a couple times a month for me, and it definitely happened this morning. So hopefully you guys don't notice, but we're going to make our way through this video still and get you guys a lot of information. The first thing we'll speak on is today's weather. Of course, there is multiple areas to watch to run the risk of thunderstorms and some that could be strong to severe, some of the same areas as we've seen over the last few days, especially across the southern and central high plains. So we'll speak on all of that, break it down state by state, get very detailed as far as timing and what the severe weather could bring as far as the threat, tornadoes, damaging winds, hail, and all of that. And then we'll switch gears and we'll speak on what's to come. So we'll speak on the next few days leading up into the weekend, and then we'll talk on some higher end potential days like next Monday, maybe even Sunday, but next Monday and Tuesday especially. Definitely scream higher risk days, and I'm not talking about necessarily a high risk day or a moderate risk day, but just higher severe weather risk days compared to what we've seen over the last few to several days. So we'll speak on all that. We'll nerd out with you guys, draw on the screen a little bit, try to explain this the best way I can for you guys, the audience, to understand. If you guys have not subscribed, certainly consider doing that. Like the video if you like it. And if anybody has anything that we could pray over, I could pray over. You know, just remember there's a lot of people tuning in, hundreds, maybe even thousands of people, especially when the videos are getting a lot of views. Have the chance to pray over your prayer requests. Prayer is powerful. We believe in that. I believe in that with all my heart. And so put the prayer request in the comments, even if there's just unspoken. You don't want to say what it is. I totally get it. Put that in the comments and we'll pray over it. So with that being said, let's get rocking and rolling this morning. So hopefully we can make our way through this video with no hiccups. Just a little drowsy this morning, but we'll make our way through. But right now we have the leftovers of the energy that popped off in western Texas overnight. This has since moved into the eastern half of Texas in the form of some strong to severe storms. A lot of heavy rain. We got pockets of heavy rain up here in Iowa, moving through northern Illinois. Also some showers across the upper Midwest. And we do have some scattered downpours across the deep south and the Carolinas. In fact, I'm really begging. We got a batch of heavy rain just west of my house right now. We haven't had rain in almost 2 weeks, and I'm begging for it to make it to my house in the next hour. I really hope it does. But anyways, this is what's going on right now. A little bit of energy shooting through the central and northern Rockies also. Watches, warnings, and advisories. Not a whole lot going on. Some dense fog, some severe thunderstorm watches still in effect, even a few severe thunderstorm warnings. But I mean, there's probably some special weather statements and stuff out there also, but all in all, it's a pretty quiet start to our Wednesday morning. Now, the Storm Prediction Center outlook, and just note this could change. A couple areas to watch. The first area is here in Georgia and the Carolinas. We do have a marginal risk. A stalled frontal boundary is hanging out around the area. It's since sagged south. We had some pretty beefy storms yesterday across the Carolinas, some which produced a good bit of hail, some large hail in some cases, and we could have that again just a little bit further south, a little bit deeper in Georgia, South Carolina, and southeast North Carolina. Now, right now, just a marginal risk, a general risk of thunderstorms across areas of the deep and mid-south. But I wouldn't be surprised one bit they extend this marginal risk a little bit more west across Georgia, Alabama, Mississippi, just looking at some guidance. Looks like we're going to have some more widespread storm activity that could hit strong limits. But this is the big area to watch today. First off, I will mention a marginal risk does extend all the way up through the southern half of Wisconsin, which includes like Janesville, Milwaukee, Madison, even down to Rockford, Illinois. Cuts right through the heart of Iowa. Cuts the southern half of Nebraska in half, has a marginal risk. We do have a marginal risk level 1 out of 5. For the eastern half of Colorado, almost all of Kansas except the southeastern portion has at least a risk of severe weather. And then we start to get into the level 2 out of 5 risk. The slight risk in the yellow includes a section here of southwest and southern Kansas, including Dodge City down to Woodard, Guyman, down to Amarillo, all of western Texas. Once again, we'll have a risk of some of these very strong to severe supercells that could produce some very, very large hail. and even a few tornadoes, land spouts. We had that a lot yesterday. Some storm chasers definitely got some good stuff down here. But even Hobbs in New Mexico has that level 2 out of 5 risk of severe weather. But the marginal risk does extend back into Oklahoma City, the Dallas-Fort Worth area. So we got to watch out for that. What's driving this? The tornado threat's kind of weird. We got a 2% risk down here in far southwest Texas, and then one up here right where kind of Colorado, Kansas, Oklahoma, and northern Texas come together. But a lot of that 2% risk is in the state of Kansas, including Dodge City and Guyman. And then the wind threat pretty much covers the entire slight risk area. 15% risk of winds exceeding 55 to 60 miles per hour. And the hail threat, a little bit cut off here, shaved off, if you will, on the far northern side. But hail threat, 15% risk of hail exceeding 1 inch in diameter or larger. Could get a hatch risk issued to the south, so we'll watch for that. And there's areas to watch. In fact, a pretty large area that's pretty connected here from the Central Plains, goes all the way down to the Southern Plains, through the Deep South, into the Southeast, Southern Alps. Marginal risk of flash flooding, so at least at 5%. Now, speaking on it section by section, we'll speak on the Southeast first. A broad look at things. You'll see there's just a lot of activity that kind of pops up early to mid-afternoon. You see there's a lot of thunderstorm activity in Alabama, even some scattered stuff in Mississippi, the western panhandle of Florida. By the way, Florida really needs rain also, especially the peninsula. But we're getting a lot of thunderstorm activity kind of around or just inland or just off the coast of the Carolinas. Some thunderstorms even in the southern Alps. And then we'll get into more so the evening, dinner time. Look at all these thunderstorms coming in the southwest Mississippi. But, you know, it's kind of a summer-type pattern, really a lack of flow out there. And a lot of pop-up activity could be ongoing. Now, there'll be just enough push in the atmosphere to get these storms going one way or the other. But definitely more of a summer pattern rather than spring pattern, in my opinion. But some thunderstorms here, North Carolina. And then I do think some scattered downpours could continue into the overnight hours, which is a closer look at the marginal risk area, Georgia and South Carolina. We start to get to about 2 p.m. We start to get some thunderstorms popping up kind of east of 95 here in South Carolina. And then they could get strong to severe. So if you're vacationing in Myrtle Beach, down to Charleston, the South Carolina coastline to the southeastern areas of North Carolina, certainly could get some strong to severe storms. Myrtle Beach, I mean, check out those storms around 4 p.m. right on top of you. And then we start to get into 6, 7, storms still hanging out. Could get a little bit of a sea breeze activity that could push some of these storms further north. And listen, we could get more thunderstorm activity kind of around Augusta to Columbia to Florence this afternoon than what this model is showing. So, you know, this isn't exactly what's going to happen, just guidance. But Statesboro, you know, some thunderstorms down here near Savannah. We got some storms really close to Atlanta and northern Georgia again. And check out those storms kind of clustering up later this evening, like 9, 10, 11 p.m. down here in southeast Georgia. Some storms south of Columbia. And we could have some pop-up activity just lingers around. Just some gusty winds, hail possible with these storms. So can't rule out a quick spin up either. But the Northeast is a pretty quiet day of weather this evening, getting into the overnight hours all the way into tomorrow morning. We could wake up to some shower activity tomorrow morning across New York State. But, I mean, it's a pretty nice day across the Northeast, New England, the Mid-Atlantic. The south central U.S., we're dealing with the line of storms moving through eastern Texas. I think this will continue to really crash down, and especially where there's better storm energy in southeastern portions of Texas. So, you know, Houston down to Corpus Christi, we'll get some storms. And I do think this energy will try to refire with daytime heating in Louisiana all the way into Mississippi. So you see all the storm activity this afternoon in Louisiana, northeast Texas, and the southwest Arkansas, even some storms popping up in southeast Oklahoma. And these will just kind of be dancing around, kind of maybe outflow boundary driven kind of type stuff. But southeast Texas getting some storm activity too. And then, of course, you saw that activity back in West Texas, up here also in Oklahoma and Kansas. I'm about to zoom into those regions here. So once again, we're zooming into southwest Texas around lunchtime time frame up here. Had some big meaty storms down here yesterday, and I think it's going to be the same thing. 4 p.m., boom, storms starting to fire here along a kind of wiggling dry line. A dry line meaning quite what it sounds like, you know, dry air on one side, moist air on the other. In this case, in all the cases across the U.S., the dry air is going to be on the west side. The moist air is going to be on the east side. So storms will fire around that boundary. of moisture, and Pico's getting some strong to severe storms, and then we could get some strong supercells. And Fort Stockton right around down here, once again, that could be a highlighted zone for some big time cells. Always tough to figure out exactly where these fire, but I mean it's quite obviously showing just areas of very strong to severe storms. Could be all the way up here to Hobbs, New Mexico too. And these storms, there's not much flow to get tornadoes going, but you could get some land spouts. You still could get a tornado with these. And these will drift eastward as we get into the late evening hours, 9, 10, 11. Might turn more into a linear look. And then eventually all this energy will make its way into central Texas. But we could still have some very strong to severe storms, a storm or two down here like south of San Angelo, stuff like that. But these storms could pack a punch, especially in the afternoon hours. And then we make our way a little bit further east. The HRRR model really wants to kind of it likes the idea of storms latching on again to some leftover boundary activity from Dallas-Fort Worth into northeastern Texas. So around lunchtime shows vigorous thunderstorm activity from Sherman to Dallas to Tyler up to Paris. We'll see if that happens, and those kind of all move into northeastern Texas. So watch out, Mary. I know you live in this area. Some storms could make their way into your area kind of early in the afternoon, potentially. And then it really looks like there's an outflow here that's like pulling these storms to the northeast. And like I said, I've mentioned this a couple times over the last few days, it's like a summer type pattern. You basically get this rain-cooled air that pops off these storms. And as that rain-cooled air kind of fires off the storms, it hits warm, moist air. And kind of the difference between those two temperatures and two air masses fires up more vigorous storm activity. And it's kind of like what we're seeing here. So around this afternoon, could get some strong to severe storms or just regular thunderstorms into the Arklatex, Texarkana. So we'll watch out for that. And then we have to watch out what happens to the west with the leftover activity in western Texas. Could have some sort of line of storms that we're waking up to, even though it's not being shown in northern Texas here. Sometimes Model Guys doesn't pick up on this well. Moving up to Oklahoma, we start to get into about lunchtime, 1 p.m., 2 p.m., 3 p.m. Not a whole lot going on. 5 p.m., 6 p.m. See some storms dancing around near McAllister and eastern areas of Oklahoma. And then I would watch for some storms near Guyman, just the panhandle of Oklahoma, and obviously the panhandle of Texas too. See those storms near Amarillo, look near Liberal, Kansas, and these storms could be intense from Lubbock to Amarillo. This is around 11 p.m. too, local time. And you see these little squiggly circle things coming off these storms. This indicates rotation with some of these storms. So please be aware of these. This energy will make its way sort of east of Amarillo and Lubbock eventually after midnight, hitting Childress. But listen, there could be more widespread activity than what this is showing. You know, this run doesn't show a whole lot in the slight risk area of Oklahoma. We can only look at what we have. But Kansas is starting off this morning, getting into about midday, a little bit of shower activity, maybe popping off north of Hayes. And then we get into middle of the afternoon, and you see some potential for some supercells, some strong to severe storms north of Manhattan. Watch out for these. They kind of pop off right as they're beginning to kind of leave the state here of Kansas. And then we have another cell that pops off here north of Hayes around late afternoon, dinner time. And this is when these storms could get interesting for the state of Kansas. And it's really, I mean, from Colby to Hayes, even down to Garden City, Dodge City. I mean, you got to remember, like, honestly, you know, well, really, down here in this part of Kansas is actually where we have the level 2 out of 5 risk, the slight risk. Once you get up into this region right here, this is the marginal risk. And this looks like on this particular run that we're getting more activity outside of the slight risk than we are in the slight risk and the higher risk areas. So a lot of thunderstorm activity up here in northern Kansas, and some of these could produce a spin up, a tornado, some large hail, and some damaging winds. So just be aware of that. And it just looks like round after round. I mean, check it out. This starts around 5, 6 p.m. and it just gets more widespread in coverage up here, all the way through midnight, all the way through the wee hours of the morning tomorrow morning. And then we're waking up tomorrow morning to continuous storm activity in the northern half of Kansas. So a lot going on up here, and not sure what this is, but let's move past it. But up here in north central U.S., we do have a risk of strong to severe storms. I'm not going to zoom into each individual state up here just because we don't really have a slight risk here. But you see the thunderstorm activity firing up here in northeast Iowa, central Wisconsin. We got some storm activity down here in Nebraska. And then we get all that energy that's popping off down here in northern Kansas. We could have a lot more thunderstorm activity than what this is showing in Nebraska, but most of it trying to get into western Iowa, even northwestern Missouri, in the form of just clusters of storms. And eventually this will just become much more widespread across the state of Iowa. We got just kind of heavy rain activity across Nebraska. And then we're starting to wake up tomorrow morning to just clusters of rain and storms across Kansas, Nebraska, even up in the South Dakota. The western area of the state could actually be mixing with some snow. So it's not a huge day, but that could change over the next several days as we're watching a severe weather event for portions of this area for next Monday and Tuesday. But the western U.S., pretty quiet weather. We do have some activity in Wyoming, southern Montana in the form of some higher elevation snow, lower elevation rain. But outside of that, guys, it's pretty quiet across this area, especially the southwest, which is starting to get really dry. But not too. That's nothing totally unusual. You guys have dry spells, but the temperatures today, beautiful. All the way up into New England, 60s, some 70s, beautiful spring day across the mid-Atlantic. We get into the southeast, more humid conditions along this frontal boundary in south, where warm, moist air is pumping up. So 80s, even some 90s down to Florida. Warm week continues in Florida. I have family vacationing around the St. Augustine area right now, and it's definitely been warm down there. But across the eastern U.S., the southern tier of the country, 70s, 80s, nice weather if you like the warm weather. And who doesn't this time of the year, But a little bit cooler across the northern areas of the western U.S. But, it's warming back up compared to the last few days. Southwest, warm, nice. And, so. As far as severe weather days to come, tomorrow or Thursday, first off, I want you to note that there's a pretty large area of the country that at least runs a general risk of thunderstorms, and that's the light green color. But the dark green color, which could upgrade another category, is a marginal level 1 out of 5 risk. So nothing too crazy right now, but if you see, it's some of the same areas. It's actually pulled back a little bit further west into like Denver and the Front Range area. You got to watch out because normally this area can get some huge hailstorms. But anyways, marginal risk level 1 out of 5 could go up another category. This is for tomorrow, for your Thursday. For Friday, it starts to switch up a little bit. Kind of looks like a dinosaur. But anyways, general risk of thunderstorm stretches from across the Rockies all the way down across the southern half of the plains and almost the entire eastern U.S. besides like Florida, which we need the rain in the far northeast, has at least a general risk of thunderstorms. But once again, it's a marginal risk, level 1 out of 5 risk of severe weather. Amarillo, Lubbock, almost down the Midland, all the way up to Woodard, Wichita Falls, Oklahoma City, Tulsa, and all these areas, there is a risk of severe weather. Now, this is for Friday. Saturday and Sunday, I do think there'll be a risk of severe weather for somewhere. But it has to be at least, after day 3, it has to be at least a slight risk or higher for it to show up past day 3, and it's not. But for Monday, this is day 6, Monday, there is a 15% risk, already a level 2 out of 5 risk of severe weather for a pretty large area of the country, stretching from Duluth all the way down to the Red River border of Oklahoma and Texas. This includes Minneapolis, Eau Claire, Madison, Davenport, Dubuque, Des Moines, Omaha, Sioux Falls, Sioux City, Kansas City, Wichita, Tulsa, Oklahoma City. So, large area. This is our higher risk day. And now they have for Tuesday a slight risk. This is next Tuesday. A slight risk of severe weather. And this includes Detroit, Chicago, Rockford through Indianapolis, Bloomington, Effingham, St. Louis, down to Carbondale, Peoria, Quincy, Jefferson City, Columbia, Springfield, all the way pretty much Little Rock, Fayetteville, Fort Smith, the Ozarks, the Arklatex, down to the Dallas-Fort Worth area, Tulsa included. Level 2 out of 5 risk of severe weather already for next Tuesday. So what's driving the next few days, and then what's driving the higher risk day? So this is Thursday morning, tomorrow morning. This is flow at 500 millibars, about 18,000 feet up in the air or so. So this is where we look at our mid-level jet. This is the best area of the atmosphere to look at as far as our pattern. And if we have enough flow in the atmosphere that can get these storms going. You can have a very moist air mass in place, but do you have enough flow in the air mass, push in the air mass to really get these storms, lift off? So, waking up Thursday morning, tomorrow morning, what you'll notice is, I'm going to put my cursor over this area. You see light shades of blue. You got 20, 25, 30 knots of mid-level flow through this area. It creates just enough shear in the atmosphere to get these storms going. There's not a lot, but that's enough. And if you got enough moisture pushing up against this dry line, then this will definitely get storms going. They don't move a whole lot, but it'll definitely get these storms going. Now, you don't need a whole lot of push in the atmosphere to get ththese storms going, but a lot of times when they do get going and there's not a lot of flow, push in the atmosphere, then they're going to pop up and not move a whole lot. It's kind of, I don't know if you hear in the summer, especially across the South, these pop-up thunderstorms. That's kind of what it is. And in the summer in the South, you don't have a lot of flow in the atmosphere because the jet dips in the jet stream, which is what brings cooler air, on average begins to shift north the further and deeper you get in the summer until you get to the back half of summer, close to early fall, where the jet starts buckling south again. So hope that makes sense. But we get into Thursday, the pattern remains, and then we get into Friday. Pretty much remains the same, but the flow does begin to increase into Friday. Okay, so we start to get closer to 30 plus knots of flow through the, through the high plains. But you see this feature creeping up on your screen right here? It thinks it's sneaking up on us, but it's not. This is an upper trough, a dip in the jet, digging down. So this is about to bring a lot more flow across the southwest and then across the plains. So watch as we continue to move into Saturday. So it's getting into Saturday evening. There's a big streak of flow going across the southwest. But we don't have a lot of moisture across this area, so you're not going to get a whole lot of thunderstorm activity because it's moving over the desert. So this dip is coming down, and then we start to get into Sunday, which could be a bigger severe weather day also. But there's still some things to figure out about Sunday. So at this point, you see this, you see this little wind barb right here, and you see how the flag right there is pointing this direction? That's where the flow is coming from. So flow's diving down here and then shooting across the middle of the country. Okay, that's a trough digging down, bringing a lot of just wind flow across the country. I know some people might get annoyed that I say flow so much, but that's just an easy term to use as far as kinematics. When you compare flow with kinematics, most people can probably understand the word flow a little bit more. But kinematics is all your wind energy needed to get storms going. And to produce severe hazards as far as winds. So, the flow is moving just like this. You got that southwesterly flow that we talk a lot about, and then we keep this going. And this is Sunday, so I could see Sunday there being severe weather. Probably somewhere in this area. If I had to guess, there's just enough enhanced flow moving right over this area. Where is that moisture going to be? We'll look at that here in a second. But as we're starting to get into Monday, remember, we have that slight risk day. And where do we have it? Let's look at this. Where do we have it? Sure enough, we have it right here, right? Let's compare that. So this is Monday. Let's compare that with Monday when looking at the 500 millibar wind flow chart. It's right over that area, isn't it? So it makes sense. We got a ton of flow rumbling over this area. Where is our best moisture? Well, one thing that's going on here is we got a ridge over here. So this is helping the flow around the ridge is helping to pump up warm, moist air right across the plains. And then we also just have flow coming out more so out the south. So you see the wind barbs are pointing to the south. I mean, it's not directly out the south. It is probably in the lower levels. But in general, you got two two flowing networks working in tandem to bring a lot of low level moisture into the area. So what I'm basically trying to say is we have overlapping conditions for severe weather right in this area. And then that mid-level jet begins to shift a little bit further to the south and east, and that is why we have more of a severe weather threat further south to the east. Compare that with this. There it is. Makes sense, right? You compare that with that. Yeah, right over that slight risk area for next Tuesday. So, if we compare it to what the Euro Ensemble is saying with that 500 millibar flow, the mid-level jet, upper-level jet, whatever you want to call it, flow at about 18,000 feet up in the air, then it makes sense. And if you put your cursor over that, I mean, this is plenty of flow to get it going. This is 60, 70 knots. Now, it'll probably be more as we get closer. This is just a smoothed out ensemble run. Now, if you look at the dew points and stuff like that, I mean, you don't even have to look at this very long. There's tons of moisture across the country. Remember, dew points, I'm going to put my cursor over this, dew points in the 60s and higher, it's plenty of enough moisture to get to feed these storms. They love moist air. Okay, they don't like dew points in the 50s or lower. 50s will get the job done, but these storms much rather have dew points in the 60s, 70s, stuff like that. So moist, almost tropical air. So, I mean, we get into Thursday, we get dew points creeping all the way up into the 60s into Iowa, the Midwest. Now, it's going to bob and weave a little bit. It'll get crashed down, especially with a cold front. It's going to move across areas of the eastern U.S. This will kind of cut off the moist feed as we're getting into this coming Sunday. But you see the flow kind of gaining back steam. We got dew points into the 50s all the way into the Dakotas. And we have, remember, this is Sunday, okay? So this is Sunday evening. We got dew points all the way up into the 60s in Nebraska, a good chunk of Kansas, and a good chunk of Oklahoma. Now, if I look at Sunday, so let's make sure we're on the same days. Yeah, so if I look at the flow on Sunday, it's the best right into here. It technically is the best here, but that's over, the dry air, right? But it's the best right here when you're talking about overlapping, okay? So we got now 30, 40, 50 knots of mid to upper level flow rumbling and overlapping this moist air mass. And where's the moist air? It's right here. So it tells me we're probably going to have a higher and severe weather threat, probably somewhere into here for Sunday, even though there's nothing showing up. Just enough flow getting east of the Rockies at this point. But of course, as we're getting into Monday, massive, broad sector of moist air that extends almost all the way to the U.S.-Canadian border. I mean, we have deep tropical moisture all the way up into Wisconsin, Iowa, and this is the Euro Ensemble, guys. I mean, this is blended guidance. So, I mean, Monday could be a big severe weather day. And then Tuesday, the boundary begins to sink southeastward, but still just a ton of moist air. Dew points in the 60s all the way into southern Ontario. So, in response to the higher in moisture level, we're going to get day after day of higher Cape levels. So you see, as we're getting into Sunday, 1,000 joules per kilogram of Cape storm fuel spikes all the way up into the Dakotas. And then Monday, man, that is a nasty looking signal here. Over 2,500 joules per kilogram on average across these areas of in the yellow and the orange color here. So, I mean, model guidance already screaming at a severe weather event for Monday and even Tuesday. That's plenty of fuel. So that's all I got, guys. I'm sorry for no devotion this morning. Like I said in the beginning of the video, just was a little lazy this morning, honestly, and I'll admit it, and did not get up early like I was supposed to. So just wanted to sleep in, and honestly didn't have my quiet time this morning. So I do apologize for that. We'll get in a better swing of things in the coming days, and just definitely a sleepy morning across the West household. But once again, appreciate the people that continue to tune into my content. Just slow right now. It's crazy. I was talking to a buddy of mine, and I'm just like, man, I hardly know what to do with myself right now. And I know a lot of you folks have brought up some really cool ideas and stuff like that. But I'm like, there was a few week period where I was like, man, I'm just embracing the slower times and stuff like that. But now, the antsy part of me is like, okay, it's starting to get kind of, I'm ready for something to pick up again. I'm not, pulling for a severe weather outbreak. You guys know that. But I don't like to stay too relaxed for too long because it takes me longer to get going when things pick back up, if that makes any sense. So I was talking to a buddy of mine a little bit earlier yesterday, and I was like, man, I don't know what to do with myself right now. But it's been nice, still at the same time. It continues to be nice. So I know there's going to be some busier times coming up. Hurricane season will be up on us before we know it, but it certainly is on the slow side right now as far as making content, and heck, even my job's pretty slow right now. So anyways, God bless all y'all. Have a wonderful day, and we'll talk to you again in the morning.